to you. And he says, but we can't, so we need to be able to speak, and therefore we can't, we're asking you not to allow us to withhold. Let us tell you straight. And so this is how he begins this conversation. This is how he begins the conversation. And so then in verse 4 or in verse 3, notice what he does. Another awesome tactic that people often use. They start off with the compliments. They start off with the compliments. And this is tactical. This is tactical. Sorry, it's kind of hot in here today. So he says, listen, your words, Job, have been the source of upholding him that was falling. And you have strengthened feeble knees. In other words, you have been a big help to other people. You upheld other people. You were strong on the behalf of the weak. And he says, but now it came upon you. What did? You're falling. Your knees, Job, have become feeble. And you faint. It touches you, and now you are troubled. Now, to me, and I'm going to ask you guys, some of you guys, to me, this is one of the first indictments of Eliphaz against himself. This is one of the first indictments against himself, because notice what he says. He says, Job, your words have upheld others who are falling, and you have strengthened feeble knees. But now it happened to you, falling, feeble knees, and now you faint. And it touches you, and you are troubled. So let me ask a few of you what you think I'm referring to when I say that this is Eliphaz's first indictment against himself, knowing what we know he's going to say later. Let's start with you, Jeff, man of God. What do you think? What do you think is the first indictment against himself?
Well, I mean, for me, he's not genuine in all this. I mean, he's using the soft approach and he's giving the compliments, but he's obviously got something that he wants to say, an agenda he wants to present, and it's one of condemnation. And, that's simple to me. As I read the chapter today, I you can see right through it. I mean, this is the guy that's patting on your back, but unfortunately he's got a knife in his hand. And, the indictment is he's coming to him, and he's coming to a righteous man who's done really nothing wrong to deserve this. And he's coming as self-righteous, right, when he's not. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know God's will. You and I would be going there and saying, look, what can I do to help you? We know that God is a good God. I mean, no matter what, God is good.
That's right. That's right. Brother Aaron, I want to ask you, because I saw your comment and I like that comment. So add on to that, if you would, brother.
Yeah, he's like, I agree with Jeff. He's bringing a self-righteous indictment, like basically in layman's terms, because I'm not a man of fancy speech, but you got what you deserve, buddy. Right. I know you've done this. I know you've done this. I know you've done this, but this is what you deserve. And he brings it in such a way that he's above him. Like I'm self-righteous, and I agree totally with that tone, and that he's setting Job up to pull the rug out from under him. And you have to question, is he a little happy about that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's definitely sowing an indictment and coming not really even in truth about it. I mean, just tell me, man, what you're thinking. Don't soften me up and puff me up with pride just to tear me down.
Right. Tyson, do you see a self-inflicted indictment on the part of Eliphaz in his comments?
Definitely a deflection, if you will, for sure.
Okay. Sister Lisa, what do you think?
Well, I would say he seems to find he seems to find I don't want to say, I don't know if it's the right word. He seems to enjoy
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he believes
Mm-hmm.
um, Job has fallen right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, scripture tells us do not celebrate when your enemy falls. I mean, so this is he's not celebrating per se, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like you said, he just digs a little deeper and
Mm-hmm.
seems to find satisfaction in the
Mm-hmm.
fact that maybe he is a jealous, well, obviously jealous, because he knows Job is a righteous man,
Right.
and there is no proof against him. But I would say this: he's accusing Job of sin, and who does that before the Father?
Right.
That you know,
Yeah.
to
Well,
all of us.
he's certainly going to get to that for sure. But here's what I mean about the indictment. He's basically acknowledging that Job, through his instruction and his words and his conduct, or whatever, he's been a help to others. That he's been a help. That he has been a comforter. That he has uplifted folks. And then, but see, here's what. Let me ask Mariah. Go ahead and speak before I say, because I want to see if you're gonna say it. What I'm thinking about.
Well, I was just thinking that it's ironic that here he's trying to encourage Job, and then later, Elian, he's going to have his knees feeble and weak as well, and Job is going to have to pray for him on the account of
Right.
what is happening.
That's true. But here's that's exactly what's going to happen for sure. But here's what I was getting at. Here's what I was getting at. He is reminding Job and acknowledging outwardly that Job has been a person who edifies, who builds up, who helps those who are on feeble knees. Eliphaz is making this acknowledgement, and yet he himself doesn't do that toward Job. And this is what I'm getting at. His own words are already starting to condemn him. Because what he's telling Job, he goes, yeah, you done this and you done this. He's acknowledging that, and he's being complimentary. But what he is doing without realizing it, because we know later on he starts accusing Job of being in this situation because of all this secret sin stuff. And he was wrong. And Job wasn't known for all intents and purposes, because I think that if Job was guilty of having that same type of behavior with other people, I am certain that is what Eliphaz would have been starting with. Well, now you know. He could have easily said, now you know how it feels when it happens to you. But that's not what he said. He said, no, you have comforted others. You have uplifted others who were weak and in feeble knees. That's what he says. So he's indicting himself and doesn't even realize it. And this is what happens when they start jumping to conclusions and presumptions about another person, just so they can take an opportunity to exercise their rebuking skills, which so many Christians actually think is a gift. And so this is how he sort of thinks. Brother Jeff, encouraging servant, and then Candy.
Well, Jonathan, as I read this and as we go over it, Eliphaz says in verse 3, think how you have instructed many, how you have strengthened feeble hands. To me, he's using a guilt trip, and he's also accusing Job of hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. Hey, you blessed so many people with all that God has done in your life, and now here you are in your sin up to your eyeballs. Mm-hmm. And so like, what are you doing?
That's right.
He's assuming.
That's right.
Without knowing what's going on.
That's
And there's
right.
a lesson for us. We can do that.
Right. Exactly right. Sister Candy, go ahead.
I'm seeing, sorry, I'm seeing where he helped other people, and it's like he said, now take your own words and help yourself. And then we see what they did to Jesus. They did the same thing to him. They mocked him like you did all these things for these other people. Save yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. What you see here is very typical in a lot of people. Let me compliment you. Let me compliment you and soften you up to take the bigger blows that are on their way. And so this is their attempt at establishing balance. And it's all tactical. It's tactical. It's how you deal with people. You acknowledge all of the elements of Job that exemplify a person of piety. And then let's bring all that out. Let's build you up only so that you can bear up under the rebukes that have followed. It is a way that people establish themselves as being endearing. Let me point out all your good stuff first. Let me tell you all the great things about how we knew you, how I know you. Only so that you will also take the bad with the good. And this is how he is beginning to set Job up. And, and we see this conversation. Thy words have emboldened him that was falling. You strengthened him with feeble knees. He continues to commend Job for his past youthfulness. He does that. Again, it's what people do. His instruction had been the source of strength for so many people, as he acknowledges. But again, he's only doing this so that becomes his cushion to segue into stronger accusations and rebukes that he is waiting to level against who is supposed to be his friend and companion in the faith, which I do believe that he is. But remember, people are frail, but Eliphaz is a very subtle personality. He's crafty. He's smart. He speaks to Job and deals with Job in a way that shows the wisdom that is able to penetrate the perceived armor that somebody of Job's magnitude and size in terms of personality can take up. And so this is what is sort of going on. So in verse 5, he says, but now, Job, now you are the one that has fallen. You are the one that is on feeble knees. And now you faint. It touches you and you are troubled. And you kind of get the idea that his thing is like, he's going to Job and saying, listen, you have upheld others when they did it. But here you are now, when it happens to you, here you are laying in ashes, drenched in self-pity, and complaining and whining about cursing the day that you were born, that you wish it had all been covered in darkness. You wish that even the constellations shut off its light so as not to reveal you before God, before the world. So what he's saying is, I don't understand how you, who was an instructor and a teacher, now you're behaving as someone who is less than those whom you helped, weaker than those whom you've helped, more feeble than those who you have helped. So he's using this whole idea of this compliment to magnify his condition in terms of him not being able to handle it like those who handled it, who he helped when they were going through whatever it is he helped them with. And I'm sure there's more here. I'm sure there's more here, but what you definitely see here is Eliphaz. Now he's starting to go right into this real cutting way. He has a really sharp, slick tongue. But now it happens to you, and you faint. He's almost like saying, you can't handle it. You who instructed others, why can't you help yourself? Does that sound familiar to anybody? Anybody? Does that sound familiar?
When they were talking to Jesus and they said, if you are, then take yourself down off the cross.
He said he saved others, but
Can't save himself.
man, that's exactly right. The same language. Find Christ everywhere because it's here. Because it's here. That's exactly right. Sister Meg, what do you think?
He said that too.
Sister Meg, any thoughts?
No.
All right. Brother Jeff, man of God, you going to say something?
No, I was going to just say that Candy had mentioned that too, about them talking to Christ that way.
Yeah.
And, again, that's another Christ typological thing here. I'm not comparing Job to the Son of God, but in terms of the scenario, it's very similar.
We know it's not the same. Nobody can match Christ in his suffering.
Right.
Match Christ.
But it's a similar circumstance, though.
Right.
You saved others, save yourself, and or you think you can. You should have been able to save yourself, perhaps. But this is just again, the more we talk about Eliphaz, the more I think, I just don't get you. There's the lack of humility. The thing is, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't think I'm a smart guy. I think I'm very intelligent. But on the other hand, God reminds me that I'm just, how intelligent I think I am. There's probably 100 more, and be humble and to be like that. And yet Eliphaz is coming up here. It's almost like he's strutting up here, and saying, "Let me instruct you, my brother."
Yeah, here's what Eliphaz is saying. I'll see you, Tyson. I'm gonna call you next. Here's what Eliphaz is saying, and we've heard this expression. It's become very cliche in our day and time. And this is what he's saying: Job, practice what you preach. That's what he's saying.
Amen. That's exactly what he's saying.
He's saying practice what you preach, and he's saying that his idea is that that true faith and a true walk with God, that it should keep you from affliction. So he's preaching also in an indirect way that if you have the blessings of God, it will result in you having the very things that you had, the stuff. He is already beginning his opening. He's already starting by pointing out in this line of talk that Job's suffering and the suffering of loss is a result of him not practicing what he preaches, which is the exact polar opposite of what is being taught in these pulpits today. Sister Tyson, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when I realized that it wasn't by behavior our salvation, it was just comforting, and listening to you is very comforting, because if we think about, bad things that happen to children, right? Like when I was a kid and I was SA'd and I went through all the trauma that I went through, if I was to be going off of his logic, I caused it myself, and it was something I did wrong. And so that can be traumatizing, because you're like, well, why'd that happen to me? But under God's sovereignty, when we know that God knows exactly what he's doing, he is good, and every trial that we go through and face has a real purpose to shift us into exactly what God is shifting us into, and he knows what he's doing. It's just comforting. So knowing the truth in scripture that God is sovereign, he's good in all his ways, and he just shows us constant human error and his faithfulness. He is faithful to keep his promises and keep us by his power. And it's just comforting.
Yeah, we read Job's words, and we know how we read and observed how he sort of had this gothic tone about him. You know, he's speaking about darkness and never being born and not wishing the light would shine upon him. And then and the thing that's most amazing to me is when he was saying, what is the purpose of having light? What is the purpose of having this hedge? Is this the end for which these things were given to me? And Job is confused. He's trying to understand how God is working in his life, but he knows enough to know that it is God working in his life. And we know that this is what sets Job apart from all the people that are included in this narrative. And so Eliphaz is no different. He got through listening to Job speak, and he looks at Job's speech as weakness. He's looking at it as weakness. He's looking at it as pitiful. As and he's treating Job, and he's going like, look, basically like this: Job, why are you whining? Why are you whining? That's what he's talking about. And he looks at Job's expressions as if Job is sort of admitting his own guilt by acknowledging the lowliness of his position. What Job recognized about himself is really about all the things we should recognize about ourselves, even when we are in the midst of the greatest degree of prosperity. And that's difficult to do. To have that mindset while you're at the height of prosperity. And Eliphaz is smart. He uses it against him. But see, he's wrong. He's wrong in his conclusion. You can't say that just because a person is going through this human emotional state of despair and depression and becoming downcast, that somehow that means that must mean that there is an absence of God's grace and mercy. It is not. Just because you suffer affliction of myriad types doesn't mean that you don't have the grace of God with you. This is what we need to understand. And Eliphaz's mistake, his misunderstanding is common, more common than what is right in Christian circles. He judges the man of faith by the standard of this endurance that is not challenged, that incurs no affliction, that incurs no tribulation. We judge from the outside. And he treats Job's tears as an expression of rebellion and guilt in a feeble frame, and he treats Job as though he is guilty of something. And we'll continue to get into that. Brother Jeffrey, encouraging servant, go ahead.
Okay, Jonathan, it just occurred to me, and maybe the rest of you have already figured it out. Sometimes I'm a little slow. Eliphaz is just plain arrogant in this situation. He thinks he knows what's going on with Job backwards, forwards, inside and out. He doesn't have a stinking clue what's really going on in his life. I mean, he can see the outer stuff. Job has lost everything. He's covered in boils from head to toe, scraping himself with a broken piece of pottery, sitting in an ash heap. Okay, he can see that, but he knows nothing as to why.
Right.
How freaking arrogant is that?
Right.
To come in there and start dumping all over Job, his supposed friend. And like I said in a scroll a little while ago, with friends like Eliphaz, who needs enemies?
Yeah.
In Job's life right now.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
and he's just warming up. He just warming up. Sister Candy, go ahead.
Job 32, 8 and 9. But there is a spirit in man, and the breath of the Almighty gives him understanding. But great men, as we've said, Eliphaz was, right? He was older as well, are not always wise, nor do the aged always understand justice. And then I want to read 2 Corinthians 1, 4 and 5. Who comfort us in all our tribulations, that we may be able to comfort them which are in trouble, by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God. For as the sufferings of Christ abound in us, so our consolation also aboundeth by Christ. And that came from when Sister Tyson was saying what she was saying. You know, that's the thing. We go through these things for that very purpose right there.
Absolutely. For sure. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Brother Aaron, go ahead. Aaron, then Meg.
Yeah, what I'm getting out of this is he thinks his wisdom is superior.
Yeah.
And like the encouraging servant said, that he doesn't have a clue if Job deserves this or not. He's assuming this. And because of his wisdom and his knowledge, like you said, he enters softly just to tenderize the meat, to chop it up. You know, the rain, Scripture tells us that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Why do the wicked prosper? So we see this example of, we see the wicked sometimes prosper. How many times have we seen ungodly men they seem to just thrive down here, and that you see other people that are godly following Christ and they suffer. So his assumption is his own wisdom that he is able to discern alone what is happening to Job without any actual evidence.
That's right. And that's the key part right there. That's the key part right there. You're absolutely right. Absolutely. I'm in absolute agreement. Sister Meg.
You know, there's 1 Corinthians 13:1. It says, though I speak with the tongues of men and angels and have not charity, I have become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And I think sometimes when we're trying, although we're theologically correct, you know, if we don't have the heart that delivers, we may have all the knowledge in the world and all of everything that we need to know when it comes to theology. But if we can't take the moment and love our brother and sister that's in very front of our faces, we're nothing but a clinging cymbal. It's empty. And I think sometimes, like when I hear people like speak in these lives or whatnot, you have the knowledge, that's great. But if you're gonna, you know, be like Peter and chop their ear off, then they can't even hear what's gonna be said. And so I think we see that Eliphaz was the theologian. I think he was the eldest. He was the oldest one of them.
He was.
Yeah. And so he was the elder of the group. And I think that Job, he thought, well, man, I've waited for 7 days to speak. Now I'm going to say what I need to say.
Right.
I've waited a long time. And so I think that him being the eldest, that he was going to somehow deliver everything that he wanted to. And maybe he thought that Job was going to be like, you know what, you're right. But he's like, no, he's like, I understand you're wise. I understand that you have all these things, but your theology is not correct. And his heart was not in the space that it should have been. And when I reflect in myself, I'm like, how many times do we talk to people and we have the right knowledge and we have the things to say, but the heart posture that we hold when speaking to another brother or sister, it's just wrong. And I think we've all been guilty of that. So,
yep, absolutely. So in verse 6, Eliphaz says to Job, now keep in mind, you sort of have to keep what Job had said prior to this chapter, and that Eliphaz is responding to it. So he says here in verse 6 to Job, he goes, is this not your fear, your confidence, your hope, and the uprightness of your ways? Now what he's saying is this: doesn't your faithfulness, doesn't it give you confidence? In other words, is this the expression of your fear? Is this how you express confidence? Does this indicate that you actually have hope? And that in the uprightness of your ways, he's basically trying to tear everything Job is down. He goes, how does this give you confidence? And if you remember, what were the four things? Let me ask, brother. Let me ask, brother Jeff, encouraging servant. What were those four things that God gave Job credit for? If you can't name them all, just pick the one you can't name, and then we'll go around till we get them all. But those four things that God said 3 times about Job.
He was an upright man.
He was an upright man. What else?
He walked in God's ways.
That's not what he said, but that's true.
All right. That's all I can think of at the moment. You might want to call on somebody else.
All right. Sister Lisa, what do you want to add to it?
He said he had integrity
Okay.
and that he was blameless. He was perfect.
Yep. It says, so here's what he says. He goes, he was perfect. He was upright. He feared God, and he eschewed evil. And even though Eliphaz doesn't use the exact expressions, he talks about, is this not your fear, your confidence, your hope, your uprightness of your ways? He's challenging that. He's going like, how can you have all these things? Basically, what God has already credited him with having. How can you have all these things and talk like this? You see what I'm saying? So he is basically saying that Job's what he is saying and what he is exemplifying by his words don't match up with his faith. He's basically with his faith. He's saying basically what you are saying is not consistent with your profession of faith. This is what he's saying. And this is what people always want to do. They want to attack the veracity of your allegiance to your Lord. You can't be true. You must have been this or that. You must have been, like John Langlois says, you must be a hypocrite. Sister Lisa, go ahead.
How quickly within that 7-day period, they went there to show their support to this man, to grieve along with him. They know of his loss. They know of everything. So it seemed as though their intentions were good, but how quickly it turned once he started speaking, rather than just listening and it breaking their hearts. As it's heartbreaking to hear what he said. And, I don't even know what the word, is it empathy? I don't know. Just, having sympathy and empathy. And it seems like it went right out the window, that they were just burning to say something. Like Eliphaz was he couldn't hold it in. He didn't even give him a chance to. He just wanted to spout it out.
But isn't that how so many people are? And that's just it. That's what you see happening daily when we see these crazy arguments that people get into on these lives, and in person or elsewhere. But even on these lives, we got a good cross section or good samples of all of this bitterness and this talking, the way people talk to each other viciously, Christians. It's unbelievable. But see, this is what, I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, and we've all have been victim of this ourselves. In other words, being sometimes the perpetrator of it. I know I certainly have in my past. And I try to be this way less and less as I get older. But this is a dynamic that is very real. And see, what happens is People aren't ready. They're not concerned about the evaluation of you as a Christian. They're not concerned with the comfort of your soul. Like I told you guys last night, some guy who I never even had a conversation with, had the audacity to write to me to tell me to correct somebody that shows up on my live. He comes to me telling me to correct someone else on my live. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I said to this guy, I said, your first words to me is to condescend and tell me somebody who listens to me, that I need to correct them. You assume that I think that their correction will be in alignment with what you're saying. But the thing that's frustrating the most is that you come to me, you don't say, hey, good afternoon, brother. Nice to meet you. We never got a chance to talk. How about just having a conversation? Nothing